So a little while ago now, I started hearing all the baffling reviews punching down the new movie Rebel Moon, and I gotta say, it was not good. Like, at all.
But I don't think so.
Rebel Moon is the latest film directed by Zack Snyder, a joke of a director that has been pumping out garbage for years. His first big film was 300, which is a really good film. After that was Watchmen. Again, another good film. But then he goes straight to Sucker Punch. Then we get his first DC film, Man of Steel, which is a boring mess and not a good start to the DC film universe. A horrible take on Superman that completely butchers the character. Imagine being the man that single-handedly made Superman boring to the public. But you know what's even worse? Batman vs. Superman. Yeah. If you thought shit couldn't get worse, just remember that film exists. Then we get Justice League, which is another horrible film, but not completely Zack Snyder's fault since he had to deal with real-life tragedies and had Joss Whedon ruin it for him. So after that, he finally finished Justice League with his own cut of the film, took away some of the bad things about it, and called it a day. Not the worst film ever, and it is enjoyable at some parts, but pretty stupid at other parts. Finally, we are in his Netflix era, kicking it off with Army of the Dead. A bad movie, but a fun bad movie that is enjoyable and very laughable sometimes. And here we are at Rebel Moon, his rejected Star Wars project that he took on to make himself. And the reason why it was rejected by Lucasfilms was because they didn't like the thought of being R-rated, but I'm sure there are way more reasons for that to be rejected. Ironic enough, the movie was released with a PG-13 rating and soon to come a rated R director's cut. I can't really imagine how this film could be R-rated. Maybe we'll get extended rape scene cuts with some more added Zack Snyder slow-mo. On April 19th, 2022, Zack Snyder posted on his social media his first on-set images of Rebel Moon, and on August 22nd, 2023, the first teaser trailer was revealed by Netflix. When I first saw the trailer, I thought it looked kind of cool. I thought it could either be really fun or it could turn out really bad. But then I completely forgot about the film's existence until it finally came out on Netflix, December 21st, 2023. I've waited a little over a week to watch it so I could hear some of the spoiler-free reviews, and not to my surprise, they were overwhelmingly negative. Wow, the supposed Star Wars killer didn't offer anything original is overall a big waste of time. Not surprising at all. But enough of me dogging on this film. How about I actually go over it and say what I like, what I didn't like, and how I would improve the film myself. So the film starts off with this narrator that explains that there's a mother world that was ruled by 1,000 kings and consumed their planet with all their resources. So they decided to go out to space to conquer everything in its path. But then the king and queen of this mother world got assassinated. Then the mother world hears rumors of the revolution, so a senator called Belisarius declares himself regent and sends his armies to go to stop this upcoming revolution. All while showing this Star Wars look-alike shit followed up with the title of the film.
Those who would call themselves rebel.
You rebel scum.
By the way, this narrator never shows up again. He is the equivalent of the opening scrolling text from the Star Wars films. Now the film actually starts with a shot on the surface of a moon orbiting a planet with rings, and it actually looks really nice. We have our main character Kora, known for the past roles of being on Star Trek Beyond, Atomic Blonde, The Mummy. The very first thing that we see is her digging up some soil and sniffing it down in slow-mo. But her dirt huffing is shortly interrupted by the other side protagonist, Gunner, saying that everyone is at the Longhouse. Kora says that she will be there once she's done finishing up farming. At the Longhouse, the village people are dancing and eating meat that Kora claims they haven't had in a long time, while giving a previously mentioned character, Den, some fuck me eyes. The village leader, Sindri, no, not that Sindri.
You let him touch this again.
Announcing the gods want tribute, then says that the thrusting of hips and the loud sounds of pleasure are what makes the plants grow.
It is the thrusting of hips and the loud sounds of pleasure that summon the seedlings to sprout.
Later, Kora goes back home into her bedroom where the man she was talking to earlier, Hagen, sitting around and tries to start a conversation about having a permanent partner and how that would be her last step to becoming a full member of the community, slightly hinting that she was not born and raised in that village but somewhere outside of it. A little bit obvious since she's slightly darker than everyone else in the village. She says that she doesn't deserve to be there. That's nice being there, but she is a child of war and that she thinks that she's not capable of love and it was beaten out of her by her family. Shit. The next morning, Kora is throwing seeds in slow-mo with a girl named Sam, who is wondering why she went home early. Dan says that she was walking past Dan's house and thought Kora was doing her part of the harvest.
I thought you were doing your part for the harvest, because as I walked home, I passed Dan's house, and that's surely what it sounded like.
But that is interrupted when they hear a loud noise and look up to see what is called an Imperium dreadnought in the sky. Kora sprints off and alarms the town village, banging this giant bell with a big hammer. Sindri walks out and asks Kora, what do you think they want? And she replies,
Everything.
Sindri thinks that the dreadnought being there is most likely a bad thing, while Gunnar thinks they're possibly there for good. This sets Kora off, claiming that they are being conquered and enslaved, and nothing possibly good can come out of them. Little ships from the dreadnought fly down and land, and out comes our main antagonist, Admiral Atticus Noble, loyal representative of the Slain King, played by Ed Skrein, who's been in actual good films like Deadpool and Alita Battle Angel. And before I go on, I got to state that throughout this film, the clothing designs are really bad. It's not that they necessarily look bad, but one of the things that films like Star Wars and Dune did was they made it immersible with their clothing designs. They do not look like they're exactly from Earth. But already the town's village are dressed like folk from the 1800s, wearing things like basic t-shirts, overalls, and dresses with designs, flat caps. They'd even try with Noble looking like an actual Nazi. I know the Empire from Star Wars was based on Nazis, but at least they look like Nazis from outer space. And I also know that they used a lot of real life clothing and items to create their props and all that, but at least they tried to hide it. Overall, the clothing designs in the movie just ain't it. Except for these red guys, they do look kind of cool. They don't really do anything though. Noble gives Sindri an awkward hug, and oh my god, this boy looks fucking awful. Sindri takes Noble to the longhouse, but on the way there, Noble notices that the village is well fed, and he wants a partnership with them to supply them for food since their storage has been attacked by rebels. Two being Deborah Bloodaxe and her brother Darian Bloodaxe. He claims that they'll be compensated, and he'll supply them robots that will help them with farming for the village. Sindri doesn't seem to be amused by these officers and claims that they're doing work by hand connects them more to the land, which is pretty understandable. Sindri declines the offer and tries to convince Noble that besides how big the land is, it's not enough to feed the entire village. You can tell Noble thinks Sindri is bullshitting and asks who oversees the harvest, in which Gunnar hesitates and reveals he's the one that does that. Gunnar says that there has been a little bit of harvest left over and that it might be possible to spare a little amount to Noble. Noble then makes a point about what Gunnar said and thinks he's being misled since Gunnar's words don't exactly match up with Sindri's. A bit heated, Sindri starts saying Noble should ignore Gunnar and that he has no authority. Noble says,
Offer you some advice when dealing with subordinates who need to be kept in place. I find people can lose sight of the stakes and sometimes need a gentle reminder of just how those with power deal with those without.
But Noble literally asked who was overseeing the harvest and questioned Gunnar. Gunnar was just answering to Noble. It is not like Gunnar was talking back to Sindri in this disrespectful way. Noble then grabs his cane and makes the audience think that he's going to harm Gunnar, but instead he smacks Sindri in the cranium, then starts bashing his head against the ground. A random village woman goes and tries to aid him, but before she could do anything, a soldier casually whips out a fucking lightsaber, Kryptonian blade, and slashes her in the back. Noble asks when he can expect his harvest. Gunnar says 9 weeks, and Noble says that he'll be back in 10 weeks, and by that time they shall have 10,000 bushels prepared for his ship. Asking what Noble wants, he replies,
Oh, it's simple. I want everything.
The ship takes off, leaving behind a few soldiers, which I gotta say, these costumes are really fucking stupid. These ships look like military tactical outfits. There's a new character, Officer Faunus, who commands the soldier, Marcus, to evacuate the residents for his new home. We are also introduced to another new character, Private Aris, unloading a robot, JC-1435, which will later go by the name Jimmy, voiced by Anthony Hopkins. I feel really sorry he got this role because Jimmy literally does nothing as a robot in this entire film, except for being unloaded and shot at and surviving. Switching out those two things could have literally made him a human character, because there's no reason for him to be a robot except looking cool. Which I must say, he looks great. He's a blend of practical effects and CGI, and the outcome looks pretty damn good. It reminds me how they brought L337 to life in Solo the Star Wars story. So what cool tasks does Aris have for Jimmy? Moving cargo. like all the other soldiers.
We're moving these supplies over to that building, if you wouldn't mind lending a hand.
Marcus calls over the farming girl from earlier, Sam, harassing her over water. When she walks away, Faunus says, "That's how I like them, young."
That's how I like them, young. Strong enough to put up a fight.
That dude likes him young.
I didn't even catch that the first time I watched the film. I know that later he gets really rapey with Sam, and I feel like that was the dynamic they were trying to go for. Marcus being a douche and Faunus being more calm later, being revealed to be rapey. And I was kind of shocked rewatching this, finding out that he's as bad as Marcus. Marcus notices that Jimmy is out, helping him with the cargo, and says that those types of robots won't fight anymore since the last king was killed. To demonstrate this, he shoots Jimmy, telling him to not touch the cargo. Like, did he not know he was loaded in the ship? I'm pretty sure if you have tons of cargo on board, you should have known what was in and if there's any robots. And I know why he shot him, but was it really necessary? I know Marcus is a douche, but this scene had no purpose other than to show that Jimmy won't fight back. But then later, he does anyway, so it doesn't really matter. Eris tells Marcus to stop, and Marcus threatens his life. Faunus breaks it up and tells Jimmy to go clean himself up. We then get this small scene of Jimmy cleaning himself. Sam comes and gives him a towel, and Jimmy asks if she knows the story of the slain king and Princess Issa. He tells the story of her birth and that he swore that he will serve in her name and trusted that she will bring a new age of peace. But on the day of her coronation, she and the king and queen were assassinated. Jimmy feels as if their honor died that day, and he lost all the compassion and kindness he had.
I fear we lost some measure of our honor since that betrayal. I'm afraid our compassion, our kindness, our very joy died with that young girl.
But Sam exclaims that she thinks it still lives in him.
I think it lives in you.
Putting a flower crown she was making throughout the whole conversation above his head and rubbing his cheeks. As she walks away, Jimmy puts his hands on his cheek and lights go off on his face, mimicking what I can assume to be blushing. It's such a small scene, but it's my favorite part of the film. It barely serves any purpose other than to show that Jimmy has some form of feelings, but they only appear the next scene after and never again. It really does suck because I feel like this would be at least a start of a new arc and go more in depth with their relationship. A few villagers are blaming that it's Gunnar's fault for Sindri's death and start thinking that if they see how hard that they worked on the harvest, the Imperium would have no choice and couldn't kill them, and that their work fights for them. Kora starts packing up her belongings, saying to Hagen that the others are delusional, which they really are. Y'all just had your leader killed in front of you. You think submitting to them is going to change anything at all? He says that since she knows the universe, that she could gather outlaws and rebels to fight among them. Kora says that will only give the village hope and that they'll fight to just lose. As Kora is about to leave, Marcus is in the distance calling for Sam. He caresses her arm, but when she slaps his hand out of the way, Marcus and the huge soldier starts carrying her. Kora hears Sam's cries for help and debates whether or not to interfere. Eris tries to stop Marcus, but gets restrained and threatened to be tied up to a post so he could watch Sam get raped. Faunus comes in telling the men that nothing is going to happen until he splits the sapling himself.
But you're not gonna do anything. Not until I split this sapling myself.
This scene is actually well acted and very disturbing. I'm more sensitive to these scenes dealing with sexual assault, so I did feel a little grossed out while witnessing this part. Kora tells them all to stop while she is wielding an axe. A soldier points a gun really stupidly at her in slow-mo, and a fight scene happens. It's well choreographed, but it just has way too much slow-mo. I feel like it would have been perfect without any of it. Kora and Eris have Faunus against the corner with Sam, till Jimmy steps in the room. Faunus orders Jimmy to kill Kora and Eris, but instead shoots Faunus in the head and runs away. The village then walks in the aftermath and witnesses Kora shooting a surviving soldier on the ground, saying that they need to fight.
I'm gonna have to fight.
Then the very next morning, she's already gonna take off. Before leaving, Hagen gives her a gun and holster that was in the crash when he first found her. It's cool and all, but she gotta just take in one of the weapons from the soldiers' bodies. I know it's a different type of gun, but I feel like it would have been way better if it was something actually unique instead of a little pistol. She tells Hagen that she will try and find a general named Titus, who was once a hero who turned his forces against the Motherworld. Kora asks Gunnar, since he sold grain to the Resistance, if he still knows the man who has connections to the Blood Axis. He says it's possible and asks if he'll take her to them. A general and an army, we might stand a chance, Hagen says, before telling her to be careful. Kora and Gunnar then take off, and they could have made a moment where they showed the world and how unique it is throughout the journey, but it's just a shot of them venturing up a mountain with deer. Then it just cuts to them setting camp in the wasteland at night. Gunnar keeps asking questions about Kora's past being a soldier for the Motherworld. She's obviously annoyed when Gunnar questions how she knows that the Motherworld will destroy them, and gives him her backstory. At the age of 9, her home was being invaded by the forces of the Motherworld, led by General Belisarius. She takes a gun off of a fallen soldier and runs into an open battlefield with tanks and soldiers, and somehow does not get caught. Anyway, she runs into a dead end and General Belisarius encounters her. Kora aims her gun at him while Belisarius approaches her while dropping his own gun, kneeling down to her and pointing her gun at his chin. Kora fires, but nothing comes out of the gun, so Belisarius literally spares her and takes her in to train her as a soldier of the Motherworld with a new name, Arthelis? Okay, I think it's Arthelis.
They gave me the name Arthelis.
What's a bit annoying is that she's just all alone. She takes a gun from a fallen soldier and runs in the middle of the open where she could have been shot. She says that Belisarius killed her entire family, so I think it would have been way more impactful if they actually showed her family, shown the fear of them witnessing all the invasions happening as they try to hide Kora and be killed trying to protect her. But instead they just have this kid run into open areas and later get caught. And why does Belisarius take her in? Unknown. She makes up reasons as to why, but this guy takes one random kid and decides to train her. Basically, she becomes his daughter and a friend to the royal family. At the academy she trained at, they encourage everyone to find a lover so they could have someone they could defend with their lives. I don't know why she brought this up. They show her having a lover that died in battle, but she never brings it up ever and is only shown to us. By 18, she was made a commanding officer, fighting for a king under an empire that killed her family and destroyed her home. So after that backstory and flashback scenes, she ends it with, "I'm only telling you this so you know who I am."
I'm only telling you this so you know who I am.
Well, no shit, Sherlock. Why the hell else would you say all of that? Gunnar literally asked who you were and why the Empire is bad. Why else would you tell him all of that other than the obvious, like, Empire bad? The next day, they arrived at the location they are supposed to be. Kora notices a group of hawkshaws, bounty hunters that work for the Imperium. They show these bounty hunters capture the man that introduced Gunnar to the Blood Axis with a robot that quickly unloads and captures him, and honestly, it looks pretty cool. It reminds me of a droideka from Star Wars, how they kind of unload, you know, and have those legs, but I just thought it looked pretty cool. Kora asks if there was any other way to gain contact with the Blood Axis. Gunnar says no, and they were sheltered on a planet called Sharon, protected by a king named Levitica. They decide to go inside the building the bounty hunters were just in, showcasing the weird alien patrons, and immediately you recognize the scene as just the cantina scene from Star Wars. Gunnar says they'll have to make contact with the Leviticans if they're going to find the Blood Axes. Thinking it will expose them, Kora says they'll need to find a General Titus before trying to find the Blood Axes. As they're having a shot, a weird pig alien man approaches and asks how much Gunnar is, saying that he has a room upstairs with relatively clean sheets. Not a room with a bed with clean sheets, a room with clean sheets.
Relatively clean sheets.
Gunnar declines this offer and the pigman grabs his fucking nutsack, promising him that in the morning they'll be begging for more. Kora tells him to move along. Pigman pulls out his knife on her and Kora disarms him and slams him over a table in slow motion. Once Pigman runs away, Kora asks the patrons if they know where General Titus is. This random little alien creature uses another man to speak for him. He says the last he heard, Titus was fighting in the Colosseum at Pollux, but warns that he is hostile and doesn't want to be bothered. Kora decides that the plan is to go to Pollux, and Gunnar says that he needs a ship to go there. Pigman comes back with men surrounding them. A gunfight ensues, and of course, it gets ruined by so much unnecessary slow-mo. Gunnar punches Pigman and gets punched back since he has no fight experience from being a farmer all his life. Pigman almost kills Kora, but she is saved by a random man who shoots Pigman. The man's name is Kai, an opportunist as he claims, and says he does not like bounty hunters. He offers a ship for whatever price they think is worth. So to break the scene down, two of our protagonists enter a cantina with a bunch of alien patrons, get harassed by a pigman, which is then disarmed, and gets offered a ship by a scruffy dude. Definitely never heard that before.
Who's scruffy looking?
So Kora, Gunnar, and now Kai take off on Kai's ship. Kai says they need to go to some place called New Wadi before they go to Pollux, and says there's a man that might work for them. We cut to a shot of a dreadnought. Inside, Noble is in a bath hooking up cables into his body, satisfying himself with whatever it does. A commander named Cassius knocks and is invited in by Noble. Cassius tells him that the bounty hunters we saw earlier captured a man that has information about the Blood Axis. While being told all this, a weird tentacle creature is trying to get it on with Noble, and I've definitely seen this once before. Our main characters arrive in New Wadi, and they aren't even introduced to this new character. He doesn't even say his name, and the first words Kai and him exchange are arduously awkward. Both take turns recognizing and asking questions, but it just feels weird. You just gotta watch it yourself.
Well, if it isn't a bastard from Solderin. What brings you all the way out here?
I missed your smiling face. You still got that man chained in the back?
Tarek? Yeah, he's working off his debt to me. Another couple dozen seasons, we should be square. What's it to you?
The man chained is Tarak, and he's apparently in debt to this guy. Gunnar says they're from a village and are looking for forces against the Motherworld. Tarak says he would help, but he's still in debt, and none of them could afford it.
No money.
The owner says that if Tarak could ride this Bennu, that's outside, then he could be free. If not, then he will own them all. Which is a pretty stupid and unfair bet. This guy and these other men obviously can't tame it themselves. It's like saying, hey, want my slave? You could have him if you could tame this giant bear with wings. If not, you are my slaves too. It's just random to me. Tarak tells the man trying to hold it down to drop their leads. Tarak starts slowly approaching the Bennu. It talks to it in a different language and fucking tames it. I shit you not. He says to it that they are alike and that they both have fear, but what they both fear the most is themselves, and fucking tames it. Like, I know it's supposed to be a moment, but if the Bennu can understand what he says, he might as well could have said, hey yo, this guy sucks. We are both his slaves. If I read you, we could both be free. A short scene of them flying around far away from everyone else with some slow-mo jogging, and then they come back. It's all pretty cool, but Tarak does nothing like this for the rest of the film, let alone fucking anything for the entire movie. Before they leave, they witness the slave owner try to ride the Bennu, but gets thrown off and killed in his stupid little fishnet tank top. Kora asks Kai if he knows any others, and he responds,
I might have a couple ideas.
But spoiler alert, they only recruit one more person before they go get General Titus.
So that was a fucking lie.
They go to a planet called Dagus, and honestly, it's my favorite planet of the whole film. It gives me vibes of
Daiyu City,
mixed with the minds of Kessel from Star Wars. Already being there, they follow this woman named Nemesis, played by Bae Duna, which after watching this film, I found out she had a role in a completely different film called The Host, which I could make a whole video praising what such an amazing film that is. Kai tells her what Gunnar said to Tarak, that they are from a village and are looking for forces against the Motherworld. But before she agrees, she is sent to encounter this big spider woman that has stolen a child. Nemesis says that she must give her back. Spider woman says, nuh-uh, I must feed my children, and she wants to do it for justice for her people. Nemesis says she knows the mother's pain, but there's a difference between justice and revenge. Spider woman says she won't give her up, and she won't stop killing children until every mother weeps tears of regret, forever coming there, and proceeds to attack. Fight scene happens between Nemesis and Spider-Woman, which is actually pretty cool and doesn't use too much slow-mo. But this Asian instrument is playing in the background, which I find a little funny. Asian actor with an Asian instrument for instrumental. I don't know if it could have been her choice, but this is like if they had a black actor and they chose to put in the background a fucking djembe. Also, the spider lady has a wimpy spear to fight with. Like, you're a beast of a creature, just use your legs. You having a spear is basically overkill when you could already stab and have a large range. Spider-Woman knocks Nemesis. Gunnar tries to save the little girl. Spider-Woman gets stabbed in the butt. Spider-Woman gets stabbed in the butt before she could take out Gunnar. Then suddenly, Nemesis turns her swords into freaking lightsabers. Stab the Spider-Woman's butt again, and the Spider-Woman does something stupid. It picks her up by the shoulders, and Nemesis stabs her upper body. The spider lady could have easily picked her up by the lower arms and stabbed her with her front legs. But I don't know, the movie needs to progress, I guess. Without even agreeing or anything, they already take off with Nemesis recruited. Well, okay then. Kora thanks Gunnar for helping out with saving the little girl back there, and says he was only trying to help.
I was just trying to help.
Yeah, that's what I would say when I risked my life saving a random woman's girl against a giant monster woman, and me, without having any form of self-defense, could have easily been taken out. But yeah, whatever, was just trying to help, no big deal. Kora tells him for his service she was promoted to be an elite guard of the royal family, and being the bodyguard of Princess Issa. She was given the name after the ancient queen Issa, the life giver, and that the old stories said that the ancient queen could give life, thought to be a myth. While she is saying all this, there's like this flashback going on of being Princess Issa's bodyguard playing with a dog. Not a space dog, just an Italian Mastiff. The princess throws something and the dog retrieves the dead bird back. Princess holds it and brings it back to life magically. And Kora responds to this is pretty underwhelming to say the least.
Oh yeah, what up, baby?
She then tells Gunnar that the king once told her that when Issa becomes queen, he believes that she'll bring back a compassion that he lost and a dawn of something better, and that Kora's friendship with her made her better. And why does she tell Gunnar all of this? I don't know. Anyways, they finally arrive at the Colosseum of Pollux to recruit General Titus, and it's just a Roman Colosseum. It's nothing too special. And there are literal gladiators walking around and black men shadowboxing. Good grief. They get led to where Titus is at, just laying in the middle of a walkway knocked out. They're trying to pick him up, but immediately it just cuts to a scene of him being washed off by someone with a freaking garden hose. Like, why not just have a scene of them being led to a room where he's already being washed off instead of finding him randomly on the ground all dirty? By the way, this is the worst scene in the whole movie, because all that happens is they find him. Kora doesn't like what she sees and goes back and forth with him and how he doesn't want to relive his days of fighting back. And she says, "What about redemption?" And he acts all stoic and boom, he's in. He doesn't have to prove himself like Tarak taming a fucking griffin or Nemesis killing a giant spider woman. He's in a fucking Colosseum and does not even need to prove himself. Jaimin Hansu, an actor who's been in so many movies like Stargate, Constantine, Guardians of the Galaxy, Shazam, Gladiator, fucking Gladiator, and he totally gets fucking wasted in this film. And you know what's the worst part? He doesn't get to do shit except fight at the end. Actually, neither Tarak nor Nemesis do anything except for fight at the end too. But at least they get to prove their strength in some way. But they completely waste Titus, the man who Kora kept wanting to seek out. The fucking first character teased by Zack Snyder himself, and he doesn't do shit. This shit actually makes me so mad because Jaimin is actually a great actor and they completely fumble his role for this pathetic movie. I'm going to have to stop going on this rant because it's going on any longer and I'm actually going to have a fucking stroke and turn into a fucking vegetable. We are back at the Dreadnought and we see the bounty hunters arrive with the guy who has intel about the Blood Axis. The guy says he'll spill the info if he can get released, and Noble promises he'll be set free. He says he hasn't seen them for a while, but they are at Sharon being protected by King Levitica. As he is saying all this, they pop out what's basically a bolt gun from the machine the man is being held on by, and once he is done, Noble puts it in the back of the robot behind the guy's neck and shoots him, fulfilling the promise of him being set free. Kind of like the mistruth that Vladimir Harkonnen says in Dune, though it wasn't really setting him free, rather he is paralyzed. Noble orders to dissect the man's brain to find out more information. Then they'll go trace down King Levitica. We cut back to our characters that are landing down at the planet Sharon, and honestly, the CGI environment looks pretty shitty. Kora meets King Levitica, and he basically says in a different language that the Blood Axis already know that they are there and are coming. All the characters step out and see all these ships arriving, and from one of the ships landing comes out Devra and Darian Bloodaxe. They recognize the gunners, say that they don't want his grain, and that all of them coming there to find them is a big risk. Kora says to them that Kai said to Nemesis that Gunnar said to Tarak that Gunnar is from a village and is looking for forces against the Motherworld. Kora says to the Blood Axis that they have big forces, and Gunnar says they could pay them back in grain. Devra says they aren't enough to take the Dreadnought down, and that's just a world destroyer. Kora gets mad and says that Gunner's village growing the Blood Axe's food and making that transaction is what caused the Dreadnought to be there. This easily convinces Darien, saying that he will join them. Devra doesn't seem to be happy about this and tells him it's stupid because all their attacks were strategic. And Darien says that if the farmer found them, then it's not too long until the Motherworld finds them too. Darien gives a speech, asks who is willing to die for what they believe in, and a girl named Milius approaches, and Darien says he isn't surprised. He tells his sister goodbye and brings Milius and a few other people on board. Taking off, we have a little nothing burger scene of Kai talking to Kora about what Darien joined him and about honor and blah 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 blah. Kai says he'll fight with Kora if she'll allow him, but he has shite in the cargo and that he needs to deliver it to a place called Gondoval. Back on Sharon, King Levitica is being interrogated by Noble. But the thing is, Levitica is talking to Noble in English, but earlier he was talking to Kora in a different language. Why not just talk to Kora in English as well? Anyways, he chose to honor the Motherworld, but then Noble goes on about the ship above them that symbolizes honor to the slain king, but reminds them of the charity that got the king slaughtered by the Outworlder that Levitica is, and smacks him against the head with his cane. The ship that Noble was talking about prepares to shoot at the planet that Noble's on. As Noble is taking off, Cassius tells him the bounty hunters from earlier are closing in on the Blood Axis. And as they leave, the world is being destroyed by shots of the ship from above. Ugh, God, that was so boring to read. Fucking film sucks. Our heroes arrive at Gondoval, which only 25 minutes of the film is left. We spent the first 40 minutes on the village and basically an hour going out and recruiting people, and now we only have 25 minutes left, and this is practically the last scene before the film ends. This shit felt like forever, and we spent an hour just to hire 4 big characters in a mini army. They basically have no development, and none of them have ever interacted with each other, and this film is already at its last scene. So they land and start helping unload Kai's cargo. Kora notices that one of the Hawkshaws Kai is talking to looks familiar and doesn't feel right. Then suddenly a big ship appears from behind a big rock and starts blasting at Darien's men's ships, and all the characters get easily captured by those bounty hunter robots, and the remaining people are held at gunpoint by Hawkshaws. Kora asked when he thought of basically betraying them, and Kai said back at Velt, overhearing Kora's story, and thought it would be a good way to round up a few people that have bounties on them. Day name drops Kora's adopted name Arthalius, I can't fucking say it, claiming she was the largest bounty. Noble steps out from the big ship that was just attacking them and starts recognizing everybody. Darien, the guy he traveled to capture, Tarak, whom he mentions is actually royalty, being Prince Tarak Decimus. Tedis, who he says no need of introduction. Another spin in the face to the character and the actor. Then he sees Gunner and doesn't understand why he's there, which honestly got me questioning the same thing. Gunner has done practically nothing except for knowing who the Blood Axes were. Just a few tiny tweaks in the story could have erased him from the equation ages ago. He continues on to Nemesis, noting she has killed 16 high-ranking Imperial officers in a hunt to avenge her children that were slaughtered. And finally he reaches Kora, knowing he recognized her back at the village, and calls her Scargiver Arthalius. I'm not even gonna say that anymore. And calls her Scargiver. Kai says they should transport them paralyzed, making Gunner do all the work by shooting them in the back of their necks with one of those bolt guns. Kai basically forces Gunner to shoot Kora first. Hey guys, hey, how you doing?
There's a snowball to your face.
You hit me with this. Oh! Saying he basically knows that Gunner's in love with her.
I know you're in love with her.
But how does he know this? He's barely even seen them alone together. Even then, Kora and Gunner have had zero chemistry. So how the hell does he see anything between them? As he locks his gun, Gunner tells Kora that he's sorry, but immediately unlocks the gun, freeing her, and aims the gun at Kai, shooting from the bottom of his jaw. Like, why say sorry? You literally just set her free, you dimwit. At least this was his big moment, I guess. Anyways, Kora immediately springs into combat, grabbing a gun from a Hawkshaw and charges the gun for 2 seconds. 2 seconds of time that any of these bounty hunters or soldiers could have spent gunning her down, but only Noble and one soldier start shooting only when she starts charging her gun and runs away. Sometimes I think I'm retarded, but then I remember who wrote this movie. She starts shooting at people and blowing them up as Gunnar sets Nemesis free and her freeing the others. Darien orders his men to go into their ships, but Noble spots them and tells the pilot of his ship to blow up Darien's men. Darien notices this and takes a pole sticking out of a dead soldier's body, charges at the ship with barely any soldiers noticing him when he's literally just a few feet away, and jumps at the pilot's window and completely misses and gets shot at. But he retracts the pole and shoves it through the soldier's body and dies, pulling down a lever, bringing down the ship, crashing into Noble's men. And who's the only one that sees this? Milius. Don't remember her? Me neither. Kora notices Noble on the other side of the bridge that the ship is about to collapse on, and she charges for it in slow-mo. And there's only one reason that I know Zack Snyder put this specific shot in slow-mo. You fucking pig. Noble falls and lands on an aviation light platform, and Kora follows him down and immediately starts fighting him. It's a very quick fight with Noble knocking her down as she grabs onto a cable. Noble breaks it, but Kora uses the cable to trip him. She starts fighting him with the cable, breaks part of his cane, breaks his arm, stabs him in the leg with his broken cane, breaks his arm again, whoops his ass, and stabs him in the torso with the other part of his broken cane. She lifts his chin and he gives his final laugh while saying, "This is perfect," as she smacks him across the face with his cane, knocking out his teeth and letting him fall into the rubble below. Milius grieves over those who died, while Turk says some stoic stuff as he throws a cable to bring in Kora. Titus takes a turn being stoic, cracks a joke, and Kora says the Imperium will come back because all this, and the movie ends. Psych, they go back to the village, and Jimmy gets a shot with a new crown, and the movie finally ends. Just kidding. An Imperium ship finds Noble's body and brings him on board to the Dreadnought. These guys remove parts of his flesh and hook him up to neurolinks and put him on the back to back the bubble, I guess, and send him into a vision world or something, where he is talking to now Regent Balisarius. I'm honestly glad Noble is still alive. For what he was worth, he was a good villain, but he just didn't have enough screen time. Anyways, he tells him that he has now found Arthelaus Kora. This fucking stupid ass name, I swear. The Scargiver, saying she was with General Titus and Darien Bloodaxe. Balisarius asks Noble if he thought he was giving good news that Kora is part of an insurgents. He says that Noble will stop the insurgents and bring Kora back so he could crucify her, and if Noble doesn't succeed, he will be executed. While this whole thing was going on, Balisarius was banging his cane against the ice that they were standing on. He does this multiple times until finally the ice under Noble breaks, sending him down the waters and back to real life, I think. The men who had him hooked up don't have any heartbeat or brain function from Noble and start shocking him back to life, and the movie actually ends. End of part 1. God, that movie was just so damn boring.
It's so fucking boring!
The script for the video took so long because I practically had to rewatch it to catch things about the movie, and it was like rewatching it over and over. This movie suffers from a lot of things, and I'm gonna try to fix it. Okay, first off, give Sam and Jimmy a side arc. I feel like it would have really benefited if we saw the village build up a rebellion themselves, turning from a peaceful village to a village that actually knows self-defense, all run by Jimmy, who has already had war experience. Throughout this, we could see Sam bring back Jimmy's compassion that he claims he lost. Second, lose Gunnar, at least before Kora leaves. He could just give Kora the location of the person who has connections to the Bloodaxe. And when Kora actually encounters the Bloodaxes, have her just mention Gunnar and the things he did for them rather than him being there. Third, actually develop the recruits as the journey goes on. Don't give us a man who can talk to griffins once. Let him basically be a Snow White type character, someone who can use nature to his advantage. Nemesis already proved herself in a good way, but give her more reasons to help out. Show Titus actually prove himself. He was already at the Colosseum. Show him being a powerful gladiator. Give him a better reason to fight for his fallen men. Let all the characters develop within each other, getting to know each other and adjusting with each other. Show conflict, show frustration, show relatability, show growth. Fourth, let Devra join alongside Darien and make Milius in command of the army Darien left behind with Devra. That way we could see their connection as siblings, and if either one of them died, that will push the other one to fight in their name instead of fucking Milius. Fifth, get rid of all the slow-mos. It's all unnecessary. Sixth, change the stupid clothing choices. Make us feel like we're watching people actually from outer space. Seventh, give us unique planets. Velt was only cool because it was a moon next to a ring planet, but everywhere else is just boring except for Dagus. Eighth, And a movie where Noble is laying on the rubble. That way it makes us tense and actually wonder if he actually survived or not. 9th, give us actual unique species of aliens. Why was there barely any? And when there are, they were just mainly evil. Why are all of our recruits human? I know practical effects and makeup and costumes suck, but make us feel like we are in different worlds with vast and diverse amounts of aliens. 10th, make Kai redeemable. Since we have Gunner out of the equation from one of my first ideas, someone is going to need to save the characters after being captured. Why not give Kai a heart, realize that he's on the wrong side, and do something heroic in the end? I could give other nitpicks and whatnot, but this whole movie was just a disappointment. I'm glad I'm not the only one who feels this way. I'm glad to see the majority of the people who have also seen this dislike it. If it wasn't ripping off other franchises and didn't have such a bad director and writer, I feel like this could have been way better. Before this movie even came out, I didn't see much dislike, and I wasn't praying for the movie to fail. I wanted it to be at least decent, but then of course there was a loud minority of people getting mad at it, calling it woke before it even came out. We all know why. Diverse cast of characters, the main one being a brown woman rising up, defeating evil white men, blah 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 blah. Well, I'm glad there's actual reasons to dislike this film, even if there are people screeching about how woke it is, when that word just has no meaning anymore. But yeah, this movie is just from my views only. I haven't been influenced at all. This is just all my opinion. I'm finally glad I got this done. The script took forever. I can only imagine how many hours I'm going to have to put into editing. But anyways guys, I really hope you enjoyed the video. I will be covering the second part of Road Moon when it does come out, so look out for that. And stay tuned to more reviews. Hopefully I can at least put them out monthly. Anyways guys, like, comment, share, and subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next video.